Hey everyone, welcome to Daigaku. In today's episode we'll be looking at 5 anime that you didn't know were anime. Now whether you're new to the medium or a veteran viewer, hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 surprises and perhaps even tempt you to check them out. All of the following would have typically aired on a weekend morning, particularly if you're of a certain generation, but they often got re-aired throughout the years ahead, and so the chances are you may have watched some of them regardless of whether you're a millennial or a Gen Z. I've selected 5 anime for this video, but there are many more may go into future videos. To qualify as an anime, the animation had to be either carried out or commissioned by a Japanese animation studio, and that it had to have had a Japanese release with a Japanese voice cast. Now that last bit is important because Japanese studios did the animation for many other Western series which never got a Japanese release, and so technically does not qualify as an anime. With that little qualifier, let's begin. First on this list is Transformers, robots in disguise, more like Japanese in disguise. Transformers was formed when American toy company Hasbro first came across a line of toys by the Japanese toy maker Takara at the Tokyo Toy Fair in 1983. These toys could transform from a vehicle to a robot and became the inspiration for the Transformers series. Hasbro struck a deal with Takara to release the products in the US and then took advantage of a change in laws preventing product placement in children's TV shows to team up with Marvel and create a cartoon series with the aim of promoting this toy line. The animation rights were given to the powerhouse studio Toei Animation in Japan, who had a track record of rapidly pushing out anime. It released in 1984 in the US and then in Japan 10 months later. The series was rebranded to Tattakai Cho Roboto Sumata Transformer or Fight Super Robot Lifeform Transformers, very catchy title, in Japan, and they combined the first 2 US seasons into one for the Japanese viewership. They then rebranded the series again to Transformers 2010 with the release of the US Season 3 before diverging completely and creating their own Japanese-only series after the conclusion of Series 3 called Transformers The Headmasters, which continued into Transformers Super God Master Force, then Transformers Victory, before the single episode OVA Transformers Zone in 1990. The original Season 4 did not air in Japan. It's also important to note that whilst Transformers was a huge success in the West, this wasn't the case in Japan as the show was competing with the already established Gundam and Macross franchises. Despite this, it has continued to enjoy an ongoing anime series as recently as only a few years ago. Transformers formed a large part of my childhood, and I'm sure many of yours as well. The next 2 on our list are part of a series of animal anthropomorphic anime which were in vogue throughout the 1980s and were often in collaboration with European studios. D'Artagnan and the Three Muskehounds adapts the famous 1844 story by Alexandre Dumas and was produced as a joint venture by the Japanese studio Nippon Animation and the Spanish studio BRB Internacional and was broadcast in 1981 and 1982 respectively. The series was dubbed into English by Intersound USA and aired in the UK in 1985. The opening theme will be remembered by anyone who watched it in Europe, but the Japanese opening was very different. The series was a huge success and it spawned a movie and a sequel and achieved a number of accolades including various Spanish TV awards, the bronze medal at the 1982 International Film and TV Festival of New York, and an honourable mention at the 7th International Child of Our Time Festival in Italy. The English voice cast acting was superb and would make many nostalgic listening to the characters again. The series loosely followed the events of the novel and most of the characters were dogs, with the exception of Pip, who was a mouse, and Planchet the bear. The success of this collaboration between BRB and Nippon Animation led them to create number 3 on our list, and that is Willy Fogg Around the World in 80 Days. Similar to D'Artagnan, the series adapted another classic novel, this time by Jules Verne, and followed the same recipe of animal anthropomorphism. However, this time there was a greater variety of creatures, although 3 main characters were feline species. Also, unlike D'Artagnan, the series aired in Europe first, in France in 1983 and the UK and Spain in 1984. The Japanese broadcast was in 1987. Whilst an enjoyable series, it did not have the same impact on audiences as D'Artagnan did, but the series endured in Spain, where a sequel series was produced in 1993 and a live-action musical in 2008. The opening theme tune for the Western market is equally as catchy as D'Artagnan, and again different from its Japanese version, where the music does not sync with the characters who are drawn with the Western version in mind. Both of these series are trips down memory lane and I believe can still provide a wonderful experience even today. Why not give them a go or revisit them again? Next we have a classic children's cartoon called Belle and Sebastian. No, not the band, although they did name themselves after the novel upon which the anime is based. Released as Maken Jolly in Japan, the story follows the adventures of 9-year-old Sebastian, who befriends Belle, a large white mountain dog in southern France. Sebastian is subject to bullying as he does not have a mother, and when learning that Belle was due to be put down after falsely being accused of attacking people, he runs away with her and escapes to Spain in search of his birth mother, whilst evading police and other mishaps. The series ran for 52 episodes and was a co-production of MK Company, Visual 80 Productions and Toho Company. It aired in France and Japan in 1981, the US in 1984 and in the UK in 1989, after it was dubbed into English by the Canadian company Synchro Quebec. Whilst the series had a plot that moved forward with good pacing, the animation quality was lackluster even for the time period, and by the time it was broadcast in the UK, it was already looking quite dated. However, as a young child, such things were never noticeable, and much joy was had by many, I am sure, with the conclusion that would have you nodding in appreciation. Finally, last but not least, we have Taiyo no Koesteban, or more widely known in the West as The Mysterious Cities of Gold. This was an exceptional series with an opening theme that remains even to this day as catchy as it was then. Formed from another European-Japanese collaboration, DIC Audiovisuel and Studio Pierrot came together to deliver an action-packed, story-driven series set in Spain in 1532. The story follows 12-year-old Esteban as he's recruited onto a ship in search for the 7 cities of gold, with a subplot of searching for his father. Since birth, he has carried a mysterious medallion thought to be created in the New World, and with the ability to command the sun. On the voyage, you meet Zia and Tao with equally mysterious backgrounds. Fans of ancient and mythological history, of the Aztecs, Mayans, Incas and Olmecs, of pseudo-archaeology and science fiction, of Atlantis and Mu, this is a young child's dream story. When watching it again as an adult with an interest in and knowledge of such things, the series really comes into its own with a greater depth than realised as a child. The anime broadcast in Japan in 1982, in France in 1983, and the US and UK in 1986. The soundtrack of the series takes inspiration from action-adventure films like Indiana Jones, and anime became a cult classic. A sequel was released in 2012, picking up from where the first series ended, with 102 episodes over 4 seasons as of 2021. This is an anime that, whilst may now look dated, has a story so good that it is timeless. Right everyone, that's a wrap. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope I was able to give you some nostalgia, maybe even surprise some of you with these cartoons. There are other anime that aired in the West, of course, so let me know in the comments whether you'd like to see another video discussing some others. Thanks again, and keep watching.